Hi, this is Coffee Kevin. Since I spend a lot of time comparing coffee brewers and brewing methods, I'm frequently asked if using a different coffee maker really changes the taste. The answer is definitely yes, of course. In fact, I'd say there's often as much difference in taste between one brewer and another as between one coffee variety and another. How exactly does a Chemex and a Siphon taste different from each other? Let's go over the different ways they brew and how they extract the coffee oils that so affect the flavor in your cup. The Chemex uses the drip method, and the contact time is controlled by how long it takes for gravity to draw the water down through the grounds versus the resistance, determined by the ground's fineness, coupled to the ground's volume. The siphon's contact time is controlled by getting the water to boil, which generates steam, which expands and forces the water up through a tube into the upper bowl, where the water will inherently be between 195 and 205 degrees Fahrenheit. That's at sea level. The contact time is controlled by maintaining the steam pressure below. When it cools, the brewed coffee is drawn down through a filter into the serving bowl. Although they use very different methods to achieve these differences, the similarity of extraction is still contact, heat, and duration. Typically, their different methods means that siphon coffee is extracted at a slightly higher and more consistent temperature, but over a shorter contact time. Siphon coffee is typically ground finer than the Chemex's coarser grind, which also affects the final taste. If the siphon coffee is filtered by traditional cloth, which it is today in mine, its filtered viscosity is quite close to that of the Chemex's thick paper filtering. Should the siphon filter be glass or metal, and here's the metal filter, I didn't bring a glass one with me, the presence of sediment will affect the taste. Typically, a Chemex's final brew is between 7 and 10 degrees cooler than the final siphon brew. It's one reason I actually brewed the siphon coffee first, brought it down here, and then the second coffee, I brewed this just in a vain attempt to try to get them to more closely match. And that difference alone, by the way, will give the Chemex coffee more body, a more initially complex tasting cup. The siphon's cup will be hotter, perhaps more extracted, with a stronger initial taste and higher acidity. And as it cools, more even, more complexity. It's not unusual to get more individual tasting notes from the siphon. The Chemex, to me, has a softer complexity with more of a meld of its flavors. Neither of these characteristics is necessarily good or bad, just different. Let's do a little tasting here, and you'll see what well, you won't. It's too bad. You know, we just don't have that developed yet. That's in beta, I hope, somewhere. I'm going to taste the Chemex first. And by the way, I'm going to put some in here. And before I put my mouth on the tasting, I'm going to check and see what the temperature is. And I don't know if you can see it out there. I think you can, actually. It's 140. That's pretty good. It's 140. I'm going to say 140. Let's make it easy. Oh, it's a Kenya coffee from Big Shoulders. I think it's got the classic Kenya taste, which is to say it's winey, and I get that wininess right away. Now, hold on. Enough tasting, because otherwise I'm gonna, it's like both of you talking about the movie right away. You gotta get to the coffee shop and then, agree to not say anything to change each other's minds. Now, let's see, where are we at on this one? See, this is 155, so it's 15 degrees basically hotter than the other one. Wow. Well, and again, more acidity, no doubt. It's got a spike, coming right through a very high end. If you were to put it in audio terms, which I like to always put things in audio terms, it's like turning the treble up on your stereo. But the body isn't there yet. With this one, it is. So it's a very. They're both super clean cups, though. I'd like to let this cool a little bit, and I wish I could keep this one. That's one of the challenges. Is just you have to remember your notes because this one's ready to drink. I mean, it's ready to be analytical, even though I suspect this one has more to analyze. Does that make sense? Yes, when you taste something that's really hot, as it cools, you get more notes out of it. But the fact that this is actually brewed at a slightly higher temperature is going to give you a little more out of the cup too. And I would say a Siphon coffee maker is more analytical. Let me give you the everyday terms of it. I can tell you one thing. It's caused in my decision which brewer to use for some very specific tasks. When I get a new coffee, I often first try it out on my Chemex. For one thing, it's my oldest manual coffee maker. I'm most familiar with it, and I'm convinced myself I can do more predictive engineering of sorts using it. It's often the fun brewer, too. Its ability to present a more harmonious taste might seem counterintuitive with the goal of analysis, but it gives a great overall perspective on how the various flavor notes combine to make a cup of coffee. You have an old stereo, an old record player with maybe a tube amplifier that just seems to play music. It's not super analytical. You may not be able to hear lip noises on the vocalists and things like that quite as distinctly, but I think it's a fair analogy. It's very musical. This is a very a softer brew. I like the word soft. While once in a while, a roaster colleague will send a coffee or two when they're considering and ask me which one I'd take if I were them. I probably would admit that I'm likelier to brew it in a siphon. Siphon just gives a more detailed taste. I typically taste it about 2 minutes off the brew, which would be when I had it, still hot, but not near brewing temperature. Now it's coming to where this was when I first tasted it. The full array of taste components are on display right here. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. So I would say this one's a little more analytical. Maybe you get a little more out of a coffee. If I have a coffee that I don't think I'm not getting enough taste, I sometimes put it in the siphon just to prove to myself, is the coffee just lacking in taste? Some coffees are. Or is it a coffee that you just, needs a little extra help? And then I can play with things brewing with both of them. And as you really master your manual coffee making, and maybe you never want to master it. Maybe you just want to, for you it's a jump from a K-cup to getting a coffee maker like this, and you'll be fine. But if you really are interested and you want to push the envelope a little bit, I swear I can play little tweak things, and I'm sure. I've met enough. I always befriend baristas, particularly because they do it. They can't help it. They do it more than anybody. I look forward to our meeting again soon. Lots more to share of my favorite coffee facts, and especially, of course, my opinions. See you soon. I'm Coffee Kevin. I get a lot of mail asking how to optimize brewing using a Chemex. Well, the Chemex is one of the best coffee makers ever. And I can assure you, how you fold the Chemex filter helps create the perfect water flow through the grounds as you create the alchemy we call coffee brewing. In case you're new to the Chemex is unusual. It's got a charming, old-world slowness about it, making it a vital part of any K-Cup recovery program. It also has what's probably the thickest filter paper, so thick it's like cloth. Try as hard as you like. You can't get any sediment in your coffee. You can also make deliciously rich and complex brew that has its own viscosity minus the grounds particles. Two unique attributes worth mentioning. The Chemex uses a coarser than standard grind. The filter and the filter's smooth surface join forces to slow the flow. This slower, longer contact time between the hot water and the grounds necessitates using coarse grounds. Coarse grounds can take longer contact time without producing taste bitterness. The filter itself slows the coffee brewing. Grinding finer can slow the flow too much, resulting in over-extraction. Now, let's make coffee. I've pre-warmed this water to 200 degrees. Chemex makes two filter variations. A circular filter that I don't have with me today. You simply fold it once and that's it. The other is a square filter, this one, that requires a bit more folding, but I actually prefer it. I lay it flat onto a clean surface. Here we go. And then I fold it down on one side. Not quite, just above, just like this. You'll see why in a second. Okay. There we go. Now, when you place it in the glass Chemex, you'll notice, now what I really want you to notice right here, where this is called a runnel. And, all right, you notice it appears like the circular filter, but there's an important difference. This runnel is not just for pouring. It's an important escape path to maintain consistent flow through the filter. Even a minor narrowing of the runnel's chimney roll can slow the extraction and prolong the contact time. If you ever get a bitter or too strong Chemex, well, this is likely the reason. When you lay a properly folded filter in the Chemex, it will create an even thicker, more solid wall to ensure the runnel's structural integrity. Okay, let me do this first. I know that sometimes I do demos with the Chemex and I don't pre-wet the filter. I think it's largely unnecessary, but still, I definitely think it's a good idea in this case. Okay, let me pour the water out. Well, I put a lot of water in here today, didn't I? Okay. All right, and then let me, okay. All right, and then we have this ready here. The coffee I'm using today is from Mr. Espresso. It's a natural process Ethiopian Sidamo. When I first discovered Mr. Espresso, they were just roasting for espresso, their namesake. They use wood fire roasting, which imparts a deeper heat transfer. We should do a separate segment one day just about wood roasting. Meanwhile, lately, Mr. Espresso's been exploring single origins and roasts optimized for brewing drip methods. John DiRiocco is their roast master, and he is a brilliant independent thinker in the coffee business. I used 42 grams of ground roughly a notch coarser than my usual filter drip setting. Here we go. Let's throw this in there, and I just kind of shake it in. I don't do anything fancy about it other than just make sure that it's in there, and I guess I shake it down just a little bit, but nothing to get sniffly about. The Chemex is really a simple method. Now let's pour just enough to get the grounds wet. You could put this on a scale and weigh it and go put 100 grams of water in there or something like that, but it's to be honest, I don't consider it vital. Just enough to cover all the grounds to get them wet, and then just let it sit for a minute. Usually a fresh coffee, and this is pretty fresh, a coffee within, let's say, 2 weeks of roasting, you will get a rise and a fall. It'll foam up, just like pouring a 7-Up in a glass or a beer. I always like to be fair to beverages. Okay, we just poured enough to get it wet, and I suggest you play around a bit with water temperature. Don't think it's so much learning the right temperature as learning what a given temperature does to bring forth tastes you like. The industry standards of 196 to 205 are wide-ranging. It's 9 degrees. For this coffee, I've hunted around and think I like it brewed bolder. So I actually heated the water to about 207. Believe me, it will still be well within the approved temperature range once it hits the grounds, and that's the temperature we're interested in. By the way, Coffee Con is, let me put some water in here first, so we're not using it there. Okay, we got it almost up at the lip. You don't have to get it too high, but just, that's a good way, way to brew is just fill it up after the first one. Okay, Coffee Con is being moved to Saturday, March 6th. The COVID restrictions in our Bay Area location are quite strict. A presenter contacted us to see if we felt we were still in compliance. Well, I just felt we should err on caution for our presenters, hosts, and crew. Those of you who are ordering tasting kits to accompany your participation with Ken David's tasting class, so that you can enjoy, really tasting and cupping and analyzing the same identical coffees prepared the same way, well, you have more time to order your kits. Okay. Note, we've got time for some more water, so this doesn't take all that long. Okay, because I've used a coarser grind. Okay. All right. There we go. And this runnel is completely clear, as you can see. Okay. I'm going to stop the brewing right at this bump. There's a bump in the Chemex, and whether it means it's half the Chemex or not, I don't know if, let me see if I can get this so that it's, there we go. Yeah, I think I can do that right there. You can see it on the side there. Can you see it on the side? Well, you probably can. That is, I'm just going to call it a half, whatever it is, 40 grams, 42 grams to that mark works out pretty well for me. This gives me 4 5-ounce cups, and they're just a bit stronger tasting than usual. And I sure like them, as we have several guests who sample them over the years, maybe more than several. This carefully selected in coffee stands up to the strength increase quite well, I can assure you. All right, looks like I've got enough for one more pour. And it should be right there, or maybe even a little bit above. That's okay too. Not all coffees can handle being brewed stronger. That's a difference too, and it isn't just by variety. It may have a number of factors. It could be the variety, the processing, that particular coffee, and how it's roasted, and of course, in addition to the other brewing parameters. So that's why, it's worth putting a little time into understanding coffee brewing, because unlike, you can go out and buy a fantastic beer, you can buy a fantastic bottle of wine, and you need to know about how to remove the cork properly and maybe what temperature, serving temperature, but coffee is so much more for us to learn. Okay, we're there. I think we're at a point where we can make a test. There we go. And let me pour this into another vessel. And I did that perfectly. It also warmed the cup up. So I'm with John McCourtney here today, and Mac and I have been drinking coffee together for years. And here we go. All right, there's perfect. I have a little table next to me so that I can put all these things and then get them out of the way visually. And here's his cup, and this is my cup. And I will take a sip. Someone said I forgot to take a sip of coffee the other day. I didn't forget, I just didn't do it on camera. But they said, you should take a sip on camera. It seemed like maybe you didn't like the coffee. I love the coffee. I just decided not to put you through it waiting for me. Here we go. Wow, it's a natural process. And that is what a great sample of that. Not all our natural process, and it's just a significant taste difference. We'll have to do a show on natural process soon too as well. I want to wish you a great holiday, and Christmas is coming up this week, and we'd love to wish you a Merry Christmas. And I'd like to thank Creeby Coffee for sponsoring today's show. Okay, we'll see you soon. And by the way, speaking of CoffeeCon, be sure to share our information. That's one thing I would ask you to do. Just share. I hope you can attend. This is my gift to the world for putting up with COVID, as we all have. We can be generous this time. We're doing an experiment. We want to see how much of our event we can make really work on the internet. We've done a lot of exploration into various. We've got 4 cameras and 3 different locations. We've got the very top presenters, that each of whom I personally learned from, and I just think it's a great opportunity. We're even in the cupping. We're even duplicating so that you could literally, if you post a comment or a question about that coffee, you can know that Ken Davids is having the same. If you've both followed the same instructions, you're both tasting coffee that's virtually identical. The closest we can come to having Ken Davids in your kitchen with you. And that is what we're trying to do with this. But please let people know about it, because the one thing we don't have a whole lot of money to spend on getting the word out. And I've mentioned this before. This always happens at the end of every CoffeeCon. There will at least be one tweet that I'll observe that comes in and says, "OMG, CoffeeCon happened and I missed it. How could my life's ended?" or something. I understand they're being, I hope, humorously hysterical, but I want everyone to know about it. So please let them know. And March 6th, it's a Saturday. It should be really enjoyable. And by the way, we'll be up once it's up. We're leaving it up for a while, so it's possible to come in and even to interact, in a forum sense, leave comments, etc. But you can actually interact with all the presenters who are all live for CoffeeCon. So That is something you can only do on March 6th. I'm really looking forward to it. Anyway, again, have a great holiday. I'll see you soon. I'm Coffee Kevin. I'm Coffee Kevin. I've been playing with my siphon recipe all summer. I had some extra time on my hands. I had been thinking of a comment posted after a previous siphon video by one of our New York CoffeeCon enthusiasts, Barney Yee. Mr. Yee suggested I'd stirred too much making a siphon. While thinking of his comment, I was re-reviewing the Balance coffee maker, which I described as a sideways siphon. It is that, and it is automatic. One thing I've always found about automatic siphons is they really don't allow the futzing we've come to associate with craft brewing. The water shoots up into the upper half, mixes in its own damn way, and the heat shuts off, and it's on its way down. The brewed coffee returns. The robots have taken over. Using this Hario manual siphon over the past few months, I've been daily tweaking my tweaks, reducing the in-bowl stirring, attempting to separate the wheat from the chaff of my own process. I finally reached the point where others visiting and sharing a coffee have been mentioning the improvement of my siphon cups, so much so that I'm finally willing to risk sharing my process with you. Well, we've just boiled roughly 700 milliliters of water. I always overfill it. The recipe calls for 600 milliliters, but I fill it to well above the line. I leave just enough space so there's no chance of creating a sudden water rise when I place the upper bowl into the lower one. Safety is always my number one concern. Take a look. I pre-inserted the cloth filter. It's held in place by the spring. Cloth is an ideal filtering medium. Lets all the taste through, but none of the sediment. You can add the coffee whenever you like. What I really wait until I can see the water coming in here. I still don't begin timing until the water has completely risen in the upper bowl. Okay, the water's coming up there now, and I'll just start putting the coffee in, okay? And get a little bell there. And what I do here is, as the water begins to rise, I stir kind of right away. I just want to make sure that all the grounds get nice and soaked. And then once I think they're all wet, I pretty much leave it alone. I don't stir. Barney Yee claims independent brewing guru Scott Rao says not to over-agitate, and I'm willing to go along with that, at least for a while anyway. Okay, let's just make sure it's there. They all get wet. Okay, I think we're in pretty good shape now. And then I go once around the upper bowl shoreline to make sure there are no grounds clumps. These little deposits are like what a good manager looks for. They're unproductive employee clutches, fleeing their responsibility, shirkers. I like to ferret them out in the interest of coffee taste. Okay, and now I think I've got it. Okay, now once it's risen, I start to time. And I'm going to give it a full minute up here. I'm also going to turn down the heat. To be honest, I think coffee tastes better when it's brewed at like 197, 198. And this involves slightly lower heat underneath. Also, back to Barney Yee's admonishment to me about over-agitating, lowering the heat also lessens the agitation. The grounds end up, look at that, they're just simply steeping, as they do in a French press. I'm not by any means suggesting this is the only way to brew a siphon. It's just a very delicious way. Okay, after 1 minute, I cut the heat and do nothing until some coffee appears at the bottom of the tube in the lower bowl, indicating that it's being drawn back into the lower bowl as finished brew. At that point, I will vigorously stir for about 10 seconds. As I've been told by numerous baristas in Asian siphon bars, this is a desirable thing to do. And in fact, they have a goal. Here we go. Let's start stirring. They have the goal of stirring in order to create a rounded form in the bottom of the top. All right. We've got it good enough. I think we'll get that, or we'll get something like it. Okay. Yeah, a rounded form. It defines a successful siphon. Now, I simply accept this tradition. I'm open to further corrections, but until I hear further evidence, I'm just going to keep doing it. While the coffee's coming back to the carafe, let me share my recipe. 650 milliliters of water to 40 grams fine grind coffee. In this case, I'm using a beautiful natural process, Sumatra, from my friend Siajian Ranap, who lives in, I believe he's in New Hampshire. When I'm finished with this, I just remove the upper bowl as usual and pour my cups of coffee. I want to point out the siphon is one of the. It looks like I've got a little bit of the rounding, but not what I really like to get. I'm going to cop out and say it's a little difficult to brew it in this position, but there you go. There's some. Siphon's one of the hottest cups, so I believe it is desirable and healthful to wait a few minutes, or add cream, or even some cool water to bring the temperature down to 149 degrees Fahrenheit. Please note that consuming food or beverages above 149 can permanently damage your esophagus. And I have a long-term goal to become a very old coffee drinker. Okay, I hope this is helpful. Let me pull this out. These little tips. And we just simply put this back in the top. It's the only thing I really use the top for. I never put the top on otherwise. And then let's pour our cups of coffee. Here's one for Pat and one for Kevin. I'm slurping because I wanted to sort of, that's the other way of cooling it. You can't take a very nice sip though. I will tell you it's delicious coffee. And I hope this has been helpful. I realize you likely don't use the siphon. Well, I hope I can convince you to use the siphon. It is among the best extraction coffee makers. It's highly efficient. Its grounds to water ratio stays consistent at all batch sizes. That's a big deal. And it inherently reaches the gold cup brewing temperature, so you don't need to test it to make sure. In fact, this is little known, but the siphon was used as the model for the gold cup temperatures. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. CoffeeCon Online is heating up. We're getting all our classes and presenters together. I've had a lot of good feedback, and we'll be doing this with some new innovations to make sure you get maximum enjoyment for attending while keeping it free to attend. I figure it's the least I can do to reward your loyal viewership. Our sponsor, Java Master, has a new name, Caribbean Coffee. I also want to let you know they have a colorful new concept, which we will be proudly showing you soon. Please support them. I'm Coffee Kevin.